Welcome to the Ballet Help Desk podcast. My name is Jenny, and I am joined by my co-founder, Brett. We are both proud ballet moms who met backstage at our children's recital. During our kids' training, we found that resources were limited, and we relied on dance magazines and fellow parents in the lobby for information. Now that our children are embarking on their professional careers, we are excited to share our combined 20 years of experience as ballet moms with all of you. We will be bringing in experts to help make sense of this complex world of ballet training. Hello, welcome back. I'm Jenny Huang.
Hi, I'm Brett Gardner, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Ballet Help Desk. It's been a while since we've done an episode with just the hosts. We really appreciate your support, and we're really enjoying doing this. As always, we'd love to hear your feedback. Are you enjoying the interview series? Would you like to see more Q&A Wednesdays? Anything else? Let us know. You can reach us via our website at www.ballethelpdesk.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram.
Today, we are going to do a short recap on the threads and through lines of the cross-training and injury prevention series that just ran this August. If you have not listened, please take a moment and go listen, as there's a wealth of fantastic information in there. So let's get started. Here are a few top 10 things we noticed in our interviews.
We interviewed a Pilates teacher, a gyrokinesis teacher, a strength and conditioning coach for a major ballet company, and then also a wellness and performance coach who works with pre-professional dancers. And one thing that jumped out at us, regardless of what kind of cross-training they're talking about, everybody we spoke with said it was critical for ballet students to have cross-training be part of their overall training regimen.
I like that everybody approached it from a very different way and talked individually about finding things that you like to do.
Yeah, I thought so too. And I thought it was interesting when they were talking about how dancers are type A personalities and also, perfectionists and how that might impact the way they do it. The other thing I thought that was really interesting was they all talked about how the dance students need to listen to their bodies. And honestly, from having a dancer, I've never met people who are so in tune with how they feel physically. Their knowledge of anatomy, it's crazy. Like, I had no idea what a psoas muscle was until my son pointed it out, but apparently all the dancers know this.
Yeah, and it's actually super cool. So on Sam's Instagram, gyrotonics and gyrokinesis teacher that we interviewed, she actually has a bodysuit that she had an artist paint with the psoas muscle. And so you can go and watch some of her videos where she's teaching and actually pointing out how to stretch the psoas muscle and how to work it.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. Dancers try to push through pain, which can hurt them more in the long run. And this is something that all of them talked about.
Right. Yeah. I mean, injuries happen to almost all dancers. We've heard that over and over again. And everybody we interviewed said the same thing. Like, it's 100% likely that your dancer at some point is going to have an injury. And what we kept hearing, which I thought was interesting, was the whole notion of 3 days. So understanding that taking 3 days off may ultimately prevent 3 months off. And they all said it in one way or another, but it was still like that 3-day thing, like 3 days off can make such a huge difference.
And even though dancers think that is such a long time, 3 days is a blink. It's just a long weekend. Parents, if you can help your kids get to see that 3 days is a much shorter time than 3 months. These folks were seeing that overuse injuries are the most common type. And this seems to send a clear message that dancers really do need to pay attention to their pain levels. And when Elizabeth talked about doing that pain level journal, and as parents checking in with your dancers once a week and just asking them where their pain level is to create a document where you can start seeing patterns. I thought that was an excellent pro tip that all parents can really implement without seeming bossy or overbearing, but really help their kids learn how to track their pain.
I wish there wasn't such a culture of fear at ballet programs. Yeah. We've all seen it. But these kids are worried that if they take time off, they're going to lose their spot or the other kids are going to pass them by. Interestingly, when we talked to some of these folks, as Sue McCarroll in particular said that A lot of times dancers, when they take time off and then they rehab, they come back stronger. Wish these schools would, adopt a formal injury protocol and get rid of this whole notion of fear that if you take time off that you're going to lose your spot in class.
Right. I 100% agree with you. Listening back to the series, that formal injury rehab protocol would be an incredible addition to any ballet program. It would take all of the pressure off the children to advocate for themselves. If schools had a protocol where it's your week 3, okay, you should be doing this, rather than kids having to force their own idea and try to tell the teachers what to do. If teachers, staff, artistic could all get on the same page, I think that would be incredible.
Yeah.
I know that Abby really had to advocate for herself, and that was really hard to have to push against people that she respected so much, like her, and had to fight for that slow ramp up and that slow progression. Okay, another thing that we heard from everyone is the no pain, no gain thing is bunk. It is not true. They all said that if you're hurting when cross training, dial it back or make a modification. Another thing that they said is that nearly all dancers tried to come back too quickly. And of course they do. They want to get back into the studio and get their spot back. Remember that culture of fear. It's a real thing.
We heard that over and over again, that one of the things that all of these folks really have to work with their students on is convincing them to come back slowly. Yep. And not try to come back too early, because if you come back too early, you're just going to re-injure yourself. Yep. And that's no good for anyone. The other thing that we heard from all of these practitioners is the whole notion of rest and sleep. And whether it was simply resting from activity or actually getting enough sleep, they all seemed to say that getting enough sleep was critical to injury prevention, which, when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. One of the people we interviewed, Elizabeth, she even pointed out that the standard 8 hours of sleep sometimes isn't enough for dancers, given how much they're exercising. And I remember, Jenny, you telling me that Abby would sleep forever on her days off. I don't know if she was making up for not getting enough sleep during the week, but kids who are dancing that number of hours need a ton of sleep to keep them healthy. Also, parents, just a pro tip here, pay attention to your kids' sleep patterns. Changes in sleep patterns can also be an early signal that they're stressed about something. And we saw it with both of our kids, that when they were either having trouble sleeping or having trouble getting up, there sometimes was something that was bothering them. And so it's an early signal to just check in with them and make sure they're doing okay.
Absolutely. And if you are noticing that your kids really do need more sleep on that Sunday, if they only have one day off, or Saturday, Sunday, something that I really did early was just make sure the house is really quiet on those mornings, because their body really needed more rest. I really tried to give Abby that time to sleep. I didn't mow the lawn at 8 a.m. I wasn't running the vacuum then. I just took that time, and everyone's just a little bit quiet. She was very grateful for that, but it was something easy that I could do that really allowed her to do that full sleep, where she would wake up so much happier and her body felt so much better. So everyone was right. The sleep really does make a huge difference. We wanted to kind of go through and do some highlights on what we thought were some of the most important of the 4-person interview series that we did on injury prevention and cross training. Here are a few from the interview from Aki. He kept talking about how even playing in the park was cross training to keep things fun. Make sure that you enjoy what you're doing in your cross training. You're never going to be inspired to do it. It's always going to feel like a have to rather than a want to.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool when he was talking about the monkey bars. If you like the monkey bars, go do some pull-ups on the monkey bars or go across the monkey bars. And it had never occurred to me that cross training could also be play.
Yeah, I love that he talked about in his class that they bear crawl and crab walk and run backwards. You always want to do something that's fun as opposed to feels like work. Other thing that he brought up that I hadn't heard before was around stretching. He really advocated for jogging and working up a sweat rather than dropping into a split and stretching. If you get a lot of your stretching done at the bar, you're better off getting your heart rate up and keep getting your muscles warm. And I loved that. I thought that makes so much sense. I never understood why people just dropped into a split and started static stretching when they're cold.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting when he said that. And I asked Sam about that since Aki is the strength coach at Houston Ballet. And he said, oh, yeah, we roll into the studio and there's not a lot of stretching. We start out on the bar and that's when we get a lot of our stretching done. And, we have to make sure we're totally warmed up, but people jog in place or drop and do some push-ups or something like that. But you don't see a whole lot of like massive stretching going on before class starts. The next person we talked to was Sue McCarroll. She is the lead Pilates teacher for the Rock School in Philadelphia. She had a really interesting story that I remember when she was talking about the dancer who would come in for rehab and he was wearing a boot. And this is talking about dancers taking the time they need to rehab and not trying to come back too quickly. And she was talking about how he'd come in, he'd do his workout, and then he'd put his boot back on and head back out. And she was talking about how because he took the time he needed and because of the Pilates work that he was doing, he actually ended up coming back as a stronger dancer. And so if anyone wants to hear her story, I'm not really doing it justice. Tune into our interview with Sue because I thought that story was super, super interesting. Pilates, like I started doing Pilates for some rehab for something that happened to me. And at the time, I just thought it was mostly stretching. Like, great, I'm going to do all these stretches and then I'm going to leave. And I thought it was interesting to hear her also talk about how it strengthens you and also lengthening, how it actually lengthens your muscles. That had never really occurred to me. And I honestly never took Pilates very seriously until I did it to rehab my back. And I'll never forget the first day I did it. I was like, oh yeah, this is such a piece of cake. No problem. I'm just doing some light stretching. And honestly, the next day I couldn't get out of bed. Like my legs were so sore.
When she talked about how the mat series was actually the original series that the founder of the Pilates system came up with, because when Abby was younger and she took mat Pilates at ballet school, she was like, oh, it's kind of not worth it. I don't really feel anything. But then listening to Sue, I now understand why she felt that way, because she was cheating. Because
Right.
she was flexible. And Sue said, if you feel nothing, it means you're cheating the movement. You have to get on the reformer to actually correct the cheat to then get on the mat and do it right. So I found that to be really, really fascinating. And for myself, an aha moment where I forwarded actually the episode to Abby and I said, hey, give a listen. Now you know why when you were younger, you thought Pilates was so easy. Okay. Sam Daly, who is a gyrotonic and gyrokinesis teacher. I didn't actually realize that gyrotonic and gyrokinesis was different from Pilates. I always lumped them together, and I didn't quite realize that they're very, very different ways of working. Did you know that, Brett?
No, I had no idea, partially because the Pilates teacher that Sam worked with did both. So I just thought it was all kind of sort of like track and field, right? Like there's sprints and there's distance and there's jumps. I thought it was Pilates and gyrotonic all kind of lumped in. And I didn't realize that they were completely different practices, complementary, but completely different.
Yes. And I never quite realized how much gyrotonic can help with turnout. I didn't quite realize it should have occurred to me with the word gyro, that it's all about like spiraling and circles and really working that entire system. And I found that conversation to be really, really fascinating. And I think Sam is such a great advocate for that method of cross training.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. When my son was doing gyrotonic, part of it was to help with his turnout. And I didn't realize that because I never really paid attention to when he was in his gyrotonic class. But I ended up talking to his teacher and I said, is there anything you guys can work on to help him with his turnout? And she just kind of looked at me and said, that's what we've been doing. And okay, so color me dumb. Yeah, it was really interesting to see how much some of these cross-training methods can help with things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so the final person we talked to was Elizabeth Sullivan. Elizabeth, you've all heard us sing her praises before. She is a performance and wellness coach who works with pre-professional dancers. And just to be really clear, when you hear performance coach, a lot of people think it's private ballet lessons or ballet competition prep. In this case, she really works on helping dancers develop their mental toolkit. It has very little to do with actual on stage performing physically. But what she does do is she works with them on their emotional health. And one of the things that I really thought was cool is how she talked about how your mind needs to be your ally and not your enemy. And, a lot of dancers kind of have this internal battle with themselves, and they're always putting themselves down and talking about how they can always get better because your whole world is spent getting corrections. And the more corrections you get, the better the class, which is totally messed up. But Elizabeth does a really good job of talking about how you get in the right mindset to be in that situation and then work it or turn it toward your advantage. I was really shocked when she told us that not all big ballet schools have a formal injury protocol. Like, I just thought that was kind of part of what schools do. But according to her, not everybody has it. And she's been working with different company affiliated programs to really make sure an injury protocol gets implemented. And, kudos to her for doing that.
Yeah. And I loved that she talked about not just that artistic or the directors of the school would be on board. I liked that she talked about teacher training and talked about how you speak to a student when they are injured, that teachers are accountable for how students come back slowly with the ramp up rather than just that it's all on the student. If all teachers could get on board, I think a lot more kids would take the time to not be under recovered, but to come back fully recovered because that protocol is in place.
Right. And, the other thing that she talked about, that building on what you were talking about, the injury protocol, is a lot of times when schools don't have a formal injury protocol, the protocol is sit and watch class and maybe take notes. And I know when Sam did that, he kind of went off a cliff. Like, he had to sit and watch class and wasn't going to physical therapy, wasn't going to Pilates, wasn't doing any of that stuff. She talked a lot about how she wished schools would stop doing that, because she, when we asked her that question, she was like, no, students should not do that.
Yeah, and it was very emphatic. It
was so emphatic. It absolutely was, because all you're doing is you're sitting there and you get inside your head and you start thinking, all these kids are passing me by. I'm not improving. They're improving. Therefore, I'm losing my spot. And oh God, the world's going to end.
But I do like that she gave the tip for the students, if they do have to watch class, to use the multisensory visualization, where they watch class and then close their eyes and visually do the exercise in their mind with their eyes closed. At least it keeps them engaged and go quite so stir crazy like Abby and Sam did, where they just had to take out their notebook and write down all the corrections.
Right, exactly. I totally agree. I thought that was really cool.
We learned a ton from the folks that we interviewed on this series about cross-training, injury prevention, and injury recovery. So if you haven't listened to the individual episodes and you're just listening to our recap, please go back and check them out. There is just a wealth of fantastic information in there that I think that people can go back to over and over and extract new information as you're in different phases of helping your kid through their ballet training journey.
So should we give them a little taste of what we're doing in September?
Ooh.
Okay.
Okay, sure.
All right. So we're going to give you a little sneak preview on our upcoming series. We have a month of really, really great stuff planned. We're going to be talking to 2 different studio directors to hear how they get their kids ready for these competitions, and then how they help them set goals and things like that. Then the week after that, this is going to be really cool. We're talking to judges to understand what they look for, what they love to see, what some of the things are that they really would prefer not to see. These are judges at some of the biggest ballet competitions out there. They shall remain nameless for now, but you know what those competitions are. That should be really, really interesting.
Yeah, and we might have a few more surprises, but we don't want to show all our cards just yet. If you have a few burning questions about the whole ballet competition scene, hit us up. Let us know what you would like us to ask these people in this very fascinating, slightly mysterious world of ballet competitions. You can reach us via our website at www.ballethelpdesk.com or through Facebook or Instagram. Until next time, thanks so much for joining us. If you liked what you heard on this episode, please take a moment to help us spread the word. Leave us a review on your preferred podcast platform, tell a friend, and share on your social media. Also, as your dancers return home from their summer intensives, please head over to theballethelpdesk.com and leave us an anonymous review of the program. Help your fellow dance parents by letting them learn all about the good, the bad, and everything in between. To stay in the loop on all of our latest content, subscribe to our newsletter at ballethelpdesk.com and follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Until next time, have a great day.